Dr. Hemphill, thank you for being here today. Please tell us about who you are. What department are you in? What is the position you hold? And how long have you been with San Francisco State University?
Thanks. My name's David Hemphill, and I'm chair of the Department of Equity, Leadership Studies, and Instructional Technologies in the Graduate College of Education. We call it LSIT for short. I teach primarily in the Equity and Social Justice program in the department. I formerly served as Associate Dean of the College of Education for about 12 years, and I actually served as the founding director of the EDD program for about a year until we brought in Bob Gabriner to chair the program. I've been at SF State for 30 years, and prior to coming to the university, I worked for about 10 years in immigrant and refugee education in community-based organizations, first as an English as a second language teacher, and later as a program director in community-based organizations in Oakland and San Francisco.
Professor, what are your interests? Please describe the critical issues in education that motivate you and the impact those issues have had on your work.
Thank you. My research and teaching interests include multicultural and international education, cultural studies in education, critical, postmodern, and postcolonial theories of education, popular culture, adult education, literacy, second language acquisition, and educational research methods. I've published 5 books and numerous research articles. My most recent book, which I am just now finishing up, which is about to be published by Peter Lang, which is a publisher in New York, is called Language, Nation, and Identity in the Classroom, Legacies of Modernity and Coloniality in Education. And it's a book about the impacts of the sort of traditional philosophies of education and how they really need to be changed given the major changes in terms of the learning populations that we see in the 21st century. My previous book was about popular culture. In fact, it was called American Popular Music, A Multicultural History. My prior book was called Life at the Margins, Literacy, Language, and Technology in Everyday Life. And that was a study of about the interactions of literacy and technology. And then I did 2 prior books, one on cross-cultural communication and one on basically an English as a second language textbook. The most recent article I'm working on now with a recent graduate student, is the effects of involvement in community-based organizations on Southeast Asian youth identities and political consciousness. And 2 articles that just came out. One is called Coaching from the Coach's Perspective, that is principal mentoring. And another one also with a former graduate student is called DIY Activists, Do-It-Yourself Activists, Self-Directed Informal Learning Communities, Communities of Practice, and Radical Knowledge Sharing. That was in the Adult Education Quarterly. So I'm active in terms of my research agenda, and one of the things I've been doing a lot of in the last few years is making a strong emphasis in doing publishing with my graduate students. I have another article I'm working on, in fact, with one of my doctoral students, Rama Kased, who just finished last year. So yeah, those are my research interests.
Dr. Hemphill, can you please take a moment and tell us about the research methodologies that you have used and why?
Yeah, I would say that in general I have employed primarily qualitative methodologies or mixed methods in most of my research. Primarily interviews, observations, ethnographic approaches, some demographic data, some survey methodologies when I've done mixed methods research. In general, I would say I do not find favor in trying to apply experimental or quasi-experimental methodologies to educational research questions. I don't think they're terribly appropriate. So that would be my general orientation. I do teach research methods courses, and I do have to teach those methods, but I don't generally. I also in my writing I critique them. Frankly, I don't think that those methods from science generally make much sense in education. So I would be found philosophically at the qualitative end of the spectrum, I would say.
Professor, what is your experience working with doctoral students? What types of roles have you performed in the EDD program, such as teacher, chair, member of committee?
I have taught in the program in the initial leadership seminar in the first semester. I've served as the initial program, the program's first director for a year before Bob Greener was hired. I serve on the executive committee of the program, and I've served on that executive committee for the entire life of the program. I have chaired 4 dissertation committees, and I've served as a member of 2 other dissertation committees. So that's the extent of my service in involvement with doctoral students, and I've enjoyed it. I'm really committed to the program. I think it's a great program. I've seen it evolve, and I look forward to continuing to see it evolve over the future.